Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining Painting with Picasso's Grapevine. My name is Leanna Haun, and I will be your host and teacher for today. This is a new show, and we're going to teach you how to work through some different painting techniques. Hopefully, our goal will be to take the scary out of starting painting. Today we're going to talk a little bit about some painting techniques, specifically blending. And we're going to focus a little bit on foreground and background. Now, the foreground in any painting is something that's closest to you. So the focus will be to show how to show the difference between the two. The background, of course, is in the back. Now, before we get started, we'll talk about the supplies that we're going to need. We're going to start off with 3 paintbrushes. I'm using a number 12 filbert, a number 6 filbert, and a number 1 round. As for paint, we're going to use 3 different colors. Now, today I'm using acrylic paint, and it has a very, very smooth feel to it. It dries very fast. And we won't need a lot of colors. We have a very neutral palette today, and we'll be using white, black, and burnt umber. In addition, you should probably have a cup of water or some kind of water with you. And I would highly recommend some kind of apron, as well as a dab rag. So what this is going to be very helpful with is really kind of getting the water out of your paintbrush. We'll be moving back and forth between our water and our canvas, and if you get a little too much water on that canvas, you're going to lose all the hard work that you already started out with. So it'll be very important to dab these off as we're continuing on. So let's get this started. I'm going to start off by putting my number 12, my very large paintbrush, into the water and just getting it kind of moist and dabbing it off. So what we're going to do is we're going to decide first, where is the horizon? And if we look at the original, we see it's pretty much right down the middle. So I'll make that mark with my paint, starting with a little bit of the brown umber mixed in with a slight amount of the white. And we're going to just make a quick line. We're not going too hard, not too heavy, just because we want to make sure that it's just out there, just as a saving place. Now, the technique of blending is very helpful when you mix 2 colors together. The goal is to get kind of a smooth feel across the canvas. So I start out with a light color, choosing white, and we just make a very broad stroke. You'll also notice that my paintbrush is moving broadly across the canvas. I want to do this so that I can achieve that nice smooth feel. You can start at either edge and let your paintbrush flick off the canvas in the middle, but you don't want to start in the middle and stop in the middle because you won't get that smooth, consistent feel. You'll notice I'm jumping back and forth between my white and my burnt umber. And this is because I'm really kind of blending the two at the same time while I'm adding them to the canvas. Continuously moving back and forth. Now, you'll notice at some point your paint is going to start to get dry. Before it gets dry, that's the key. You want to jump back, grab more paint, and add it to the canvas. Plus, you'll notice that my strokes, while they're going back and forth, I'm very specifically focusing on keeping them straight because it's the skyline. So we want to create a nice whispery feel as we're going back and forth, but we don't want to create arcs or curves. We want to keep it nice and smooth. Now, in the original painting, it kind of looks like it's a very sepia feel, kind of a hazy look into the painting. So we're starting with that burnt umber and white again, and then we're kind of moving down. And as we move down, we'll continue with the white on top, continuously going back and forth. And you see how you get that really beautiful, nice streaky feel. You don't want to have the dimpling. And if you start seeing some dimpling, which is right here, add more paint. That's just your key. You'll notice off to the right here, I've got a little dimpling, so I just go right in on top of it, creating that nice smooth feel. Again, as we carry down the canvas, I'm going to now introduce just a hair of black. What we're trying to create is the background that is getting farther away. So the top of the skyline is brighter, As it gradually progresses down, it gets darker. That's going to imply that is farther away. That's some of the techniques you use to achieve distance. I start with laying down a little bit of the black mixed with white. I don't want solid black. And then I immediately go over it with the white. Now, if you were to go ahead and do all black, let it dry, and then go over with the white, you just wouldn't get that nice, consistent feel. You would end up with a lot of dimpling, a lot of streaking, and the success of this painting really is driven by the blending. So we've got a lot of really nice, beautiful streaks. I'm going to continue on over to the side. Now, you don't have to take your paintbrush all the way off the canvas. Again, you can start and let it fall off the canvas and still have that nice continued feel. As I'm getting closer to the skyline, again, I'm going in with black, adding a little bit, just a hair more of black, just to give it that feeling of it's far away. Now, it's okay if you go off on the sides here. That's truly your choice. You may choose to go ahead and hang this in a frame, and if you do, then you don't have to worry about the sides. If you don't want to hang it in a frame and you want a nice finished look, go ahead and add some paint at the side. Not necessary. Totally up to you. I personally do like a finished edge. Just that way you have got some options. Again, continuing that back and right. Now, I kind of glance back to my original and go, okay, how are we looking here? Have we achieved the same feel? So before it dries very quickly, let's go back and darken up anything we want to darken up by putting first the dark umber color, quickly going over it in white. Creating any variations that we want to create. So variations you see between lighter clouds, darker streaks, lighter clouds, and then ultimately that darker last point before the horizon. And you see how quickly this goes. One of the key things you need to remember is you don't have to be so specific, especially in backgrounds and things that are far away. The eye itself really completes the picture. You just have to put out there a example or a hint of what should be out there, and your eye will go, oh yeah, that's clouds. I know that's supposed to be there. So don't worry about getting too specific on things. Now you'll notice I jumped back and forth and I did not go ahead and clean out my brush because we were doing a lot of blending. So I'm going to go ahead and clean it out now just by dropping it in the water and just swishing it out. Acrylic paint is made to come out very easily out of your cup, so you don't have to really worry about having to clean it too hard. You're pretty good. Now, the next step I'm going to do is I'm going to jump down to the bottom of our foreground, the foreground being the closest point towards you. Again, grabbing that burnt umber first. The reason I'm grabbing the burnt umber is predominantly because it's closer to me, and so it's going to be the darkest and the sharpest part of your painting. Starting with that burnt umber, moving back and forth across the canvas, just creating that depth. And you'll notice too, you may not have the final color that you're going to be happy with. There's a lot of working back and forth saying, okay, I want it darker, okay, I want it lighter. So making those decisions are key at the start before it dries. As we progress up the painting, I'm going to start introducing some more white. That will be very helpful to show it's now progressing towards a further distance. It's moving its way towards the horizon. Still keeping that nice, smooth back and forth. And for a while, every now and then, go ahead, take a step back, look at your painting. Make sure your strokes are going back. One of the key things I always tell my students is keep stepping back. Your eye cannot see the whole painting, and you can't get your perspective until you really take a step back and go, okay, things are proportionate, they're looking well, continue on. Again, I can still introduce some more of that burnt umber. I'm just going to quickly go right over it with the white painting. A lot of what I'm doing right now is also watching the distance of where I'm putting my strokes down. I'm saving a space out here, not covering it right now because I know I'm going to come in with another layer of black, and that's where we'll show the reeds to appear. So I'm not sweating that side of it, kind of letting it be. Again, jumping back and forth, adding a little bit more white, heavier on the white, and reintroducing some of that burnt umber. You notice how there's that nice, beautiful streak. Jumping right in the middle there and adding a few of those streaks. Let them come right off the canvas, right into the middle of your painting. And I love that. Now you've got this nice variation. It looks like it's water, it looks like it's flowing, it looks like it has movement. Continuing up all the way, get higher and higher up to that skyline. And we're going to put the lightest value of painting closest to the skyline. We want to make that nice distinction between horizon, the sky, and the water. So I'm going in, turning my paintbrush sideways now, using that as kind of a ruler or a pencil. Stepping back, really kind of making sure, do I have a nice straight skyline? Very important. Wobbly skyline would immediately grab your attention and wouldn't make sense to the eye. And you wouldn't be able to figure out, well, what's wrong with it? Why is it off? Again, making sure you go back and forth, covering up all that dimpling, a nice, beautiful blended look. Now, again, acrylic paints dry very, very fast. So completing one of these paintings in a very short amount of time is pretty darn easy. Now, for us to move on to the next step, what I've done is I've actually prepared another canvas that already has all of these elements ready. And I brought it with me so we can kind of just progress and continue on. Again, background. Mine is a little bit darker on the original, but again, the values just depend on your taste, where you want to start, where you want to stop. Now, the next step is to actually move on and put in our reeds. So the reeds right here are very close to you. They're very dark in the middle. However, they're very wispy around the ends. And again, keeping in mind that you don't have to make things so specific. The key to the success of this painting is really the very broad, general appearance of all the items on here. So we're kind of starting off saying, okay, I'm looking at the skyline coming straight across the painting, and I'm going to start adding the black values. I'm just going to put the undertones on here. And what this is doing is kind of setting you up. Kind of deciding, all right, where are those reeds going to go? Where are they going to start? Where are they going to end? And if mine end up going up a little farther than the other one, that's okay too, because it's nature. And that's the one very nice forgiving thing about doing landscapes, nature, things of that nature. It doesn't have to be, my tree doesn't have to look like your tree, but it still looks like a tree, and that's why they're very successful. And they're easier to learn, easier to teach. Now you'll notice I'm kind of doing just kind of a dabbing motion. And I'm paying attention to not make it a very